let's welcome in one of the greats of coaching, Baltimore Ravens legend, of course, and now talks a lot about football, but also a lot about player safety when it comes to football at all different levels. Welcome in Brian Billick, and excuse the background for us. We're on the road. Great American Ballpark in Cincinnati is the backdrop, Coach.
I love it. You're not far from me now. I'm in Columbus now, and that looks great. I love seeing the ballpark, and that's great that you're utilizing this time to get out.
Absolutely. Well, Columbus, we'll talk about Urban Meyer in a little bit, maybe even a little bit about Trevor Lawrence, and, of course, about Super Bowl 55 on the way. But you're promoting player safety, and it's become such an initiative across all levels of football. How are they doing in it? How are we making advances? Is the game safer than it used to be?
Oh, absolutely. I'm very proud of what the National Football League has done in particular. Obviously, it began with the concussion protocols and helmet safety. Concussions were obviously a big part of the game. But that's how I got involved with X-Tech pads because, once you clearly have to take the head out of the game, well, then you've got to focus on what, the other parts that come with it. And as long as I was in football, pads were pads. I didn't even know what pads my players were in. It was just shoulder pads. But now, obviously, with advances in technology and X-Tech pads, we've taken the lead in that over the last 8 years with innovation. Bob Broderick and Teddy Monica have done a phenomenal job. We're the #1 pad in the National Football League. Programs like Ohio State, Oklahoma, Oregon, Auburn, on and on, Notre Dame, replete with X-Tech pads. And they're available to high school players as well. Urban Meyer. We introduced him when he was at Ohio State to the X-Tech pads. And I remember sitting and going over it with Urban and showing the unique properties of what this pad represented. And he held me on for a minute, got on the phone, called his equipment guy, said, I want these pads. Well, 90% of the Ohio State players are in X-Tech pads now. So we're very proud of that and the advancements that have made in player safety via the shoulder pad.
When we think player safety, we think concussions, right? And there's only so much you can do. I've done a ton of concussion stories. There's so much you can do to protect the brain and protect the head. But when you talk about X-Tech pads and especially shoulder pads, what kind of technology are we talking about? How have they become safer? And players want a comfortability with that. We still see NFL players wearing their college shoulder pads at times.
Right, and that's where we've been at the forefront in terms of innovation, in terms of flexibility, lightweight. We now have a database. Basically, the pads are almost form-fitted because we have a database now over 8 years. And the pads we're going to give you are going to be based on playing level, age, height, weight, injury history, certainly position, all those things that should be tailored to and accounting for the pads. We're also a military grade materials, science materials in terms of the advancement materials have been unbelievable in terms of the absorption. So these aren't your father's shoulder pads, so to speak, because like everything, and we see innovation in the games from GPS tracking to the way we use the iPads to, the training methods themselves. Players are taking ownership of what goes in their body and on their bodies, and that's why X-Tech pads has been so successful.
I've seen you at Super Bowls before. I've seen you at the NFL draft before. I've seen you in your coverage, and we always bring up the Jags. We're obviously there to cover the Jags, and we've had a variety of conversations over the years, whether I've asked you about Tom Coughlin or Blake Bortles or who else. Coach, I got to tell you, there is a buzz in Jacksonville right now. Trevor Lawrence, the #1 pick, potentially a game changer. Urban Meyer created actually more of a buzz than I even thought he would, although it seems like a buzz kind of higher, but it comes with some question marks. Let's start with Urban. What do you think about it? College guy going to the NFL. You started over in the college game, went to the NFL for a long time, but I don't think people label you as a college guy. What do you think about the Urban Meyer hire?
Well, Urban's a brilliant coach. There's no questioning that whatsoever. The only qualifier people say, well, he hasn't been in the NFL. He will adapt, trust me. Obviously, he's an outstanding coach. He knows how to deal with the athletes. There is an adjustment in terms of dealing with the pro athlete when you've got guys that now on your team, they're going to be 30, 35, 36 years old, 3 kids, a car dealership, all those things in their normal life that a little bit different from the college. But Urban will relate to those guys very readily. And you're right, in combining it with, let's assume the first pick is Trevor Lawrence. I think that would be a shock if indeed it weren't. He's come in at a great time with an organization and that's usually the best order. If you're going to make a change at the quarterback, and we're in a unique year. I can't remember a year where we literally have half the teams in the NFL could be in the market for a quarterback. And that's a lot of teams, both from draft standpoint, and it looks to be a good draft year. You know, you've got Trevor Lawrence and you've got Justin Fields and Zach Wilson and the young kid from North Dakota State. You know, there's a couple good quarterbacks out there, and possibly more free agent quarterbacks than we've seen in a long, long time. So for Urban to come in and take over that program in conjunction with what looks to be a can't-miss athlete, and I hesitate to say that because we've seen this before with first-round picks at quarterback being a 50-50 proposition, but Trevor Lawrence sure looks like the real deal. And I got to believe that obviously Urban's going to put together probably a mix on his staff of pro and college guys and start to build this organization back together. It's everybody in Jacksonville has a good reason to be excited.
Over the last 2 decades, your former organization, Baltimore, I think continues to be one of the envies of the league. And you can really feel it in Jacksonville. There's been a relationship with trades over the years, whoever's been the GM. And now it looks like Urban's even going a little bit after that Ravens staff that John Harbaugh has. But I do believe that Urban in Jacksonville is going to try to create a different culture. And that's an overused word at times.
Sure.
But do you think it's needed in Jacksonville? And do you almost think the college guy can help create that a little bit more? Because at the college game, you do that. You are a culture builder often.
Sure. Oh, absolutely. And you're right. It is a buzz term. Every job that turns over, it's okay. We need to create a new culture. And what you're basically saying, in my opinion, is we need to create an atmosphere where ownership, management, the general manager, and the coach have the same vision. Doesn't mean you agree all the time. There needs a healthy discussion back and forth, but there's a shared vision and a shared plan. And teams that have struggled, like Jacksonville, particularly over the last couple of years, there just seemed to be maybe a little bit of a disconnect from one to the other. With Urban Meyer there will be no disconnect. The vision will be unified. And they will be in lockstep together in terms of the steps that they're going to take. So that's the culture that will change in Jacksonville very readily.
You seem like you're okay with the Urban Meyer hire. There's a lot of folks I feel like in the NFL that are, hey, this is our fraternity. You're the college guy. Is there that hurdle to jump over for Urban?
I don't think so. Good coaching's good coaching. Certainly guys that have left the college game and come into the NFL without NFL experience have not been real successful. There's exceptions to it, obviously. Just like guys that take over from a coordinator position to becoming a head coach for the first time and don't have any head coaching experience. That is a hit and miss as well. The fact of the matter is most coaches get hired in the NFL to get fired. I mean, that's just, the average length of a head coach in the NFL is about 3 years. So, yeah, in general, if you want to be negative and say, well, we don't think this is going to work, you're probably right because that is conventionally what's going to happen. Very few succeed, but Urban Meyer is such a spectacular coach. The fact that he doesn't have any pro experience is minimal. He knows how to deal with players. I think he'll have this organization, as I said, he'll change the culture in that regard. It'll come together very quickly. And Urban's a good coach. He'll learn to adapt to the clientele he now has in terms of his team. He'll get used to the fact that he sits there in front of 53 quasi-millionaires, and that's a different mindset when you're talking to a college group.
Super Bowl winning coach Brian Billick with us here for a little bit more. Backdrop for me is Cincinnati, and I didn't even realize Coach is right down the road, up the road a little bit in Columbus, Ohio as well right now. Would Trevor Lawrence make you get back in the coaching game? Is he that good? Does he look like he's that good?
He looks like the real deal, doesn't he? I just wrote a book that came out in the fall called The Q Factor, which analyzes basically, we used the 2018 draft because it was such an interesting, there were 5 quarterbacks taken, diverse backgrounds, diverse abilities from a Baker Mayfield to a Josh Allen to a Lamar Jackson. This is going to be an interesting year that way. And it's the process because at best, it's a 50-50 process. When you look at the list of first round picks that are a bust, it is now Trevor Lawrence, there's absolutely no reason to think this guy can't be successful. Having said that, there was absolutely no reason that Jamarcus Russell, Vince Young, Joey Harrington, Ryan Leaf, the list goes on and on. There was no reason why those guys couldn't be successful. So, yeah, it is going to be a transition. But this young man seems to have the entire pedigree. He's coming with a coach that really knows how to develop and nurture that quarterback. It would be a shocker if indeed Trevor Lawrence doesn't turn out to be an outstanding quarterback. Lastly,
you've seen great offense. You love the game of football. I I think it's become a little bit cliche this week to say how great is this Super Bowl 55 matchup, but
Yeah.
I mean, it is hard to sign up for something better. I mean, the greatest of all time and what Brady's accomplished is ridiculous. Seems like Bruce Arians a really good guy, a guy you can root for. And then you say the same about Andy Reid, and Patrick Mahomes is just incredible. How good is this? How good could this be in
Oh,
Super Bowl 55?
spectacular. And it comes down to the quarterbacks. What I think the difference is going to be, both teams are capable of the big play. And I think it's going to be the big play that makes the difference. And how the defenses recognize that. Tampa knows you cannot play man against Tyreek Hill. They learned that the first time when he went off for better than 250 yards. You have to play zone. You can't let him get in behind it. But that also means that you've got quarterbacks that can manipulate the ball, or as Hank Strand would say, matriculate the ball down the field, right? With either their legs by way of Patrick Mahomes, or hitting down dynamic players underneath. Tom Brady playing small ball. So they can beat you that way. But it's going to come down to the big plays and turnovers. Who can eliminate the turnovers, and special teams play. So, yeah, both these teams are going to be capable. I think both, I've been saying all week, I think both coaches would make that deal with the devil to say, okay, I'll take a tie game as long as my guy has the ball in his hands with, say, about 3 minutes at the end of the game. I'll take my odds with that.
I think you're right on the money. I'm going to go get the book, Coach, by the way, now that we got a big-time quarterback coming to Jacksonville.
You got to do it. The Q factor.
X-Tech pads as well. Keep up the good work promoting player safety. Always good to catch up with you, Brian.
All right. Travel safe.
Thank you.